Okay, let's see. Hi there. My name
I think you're muted. Hey, Professor Hobbs, you're muted. There we
All
go.
right, well, there you go. I think you can hear me now, right? Thank you so much for noticing I'm muted. This is Renee Hobbs. This is COM 416 Propaganda. So far, I see when I call your name out, why don't you put everybody on the screen and we'll wave to each other. Hello. I see Colton. I see Kelly. I see Rachel, Justine, Eric, Michael, Leighton, Said, Candace, and Amanda Murphy. And there you go. And so thank you so much for joining me tonight. We have a fast and furious 1 hour class. And a bunch of things to try to accomplish in the next a minute or so. Hi, Amanda. Are you joining us for COM 416 Propaganda?
No, but this was the link that I had, Renee, for our Zoom meeting. I apologize if I'm jumping into the wrong meeting.
Okay. And that's probably why Mike Trophy and Lori Huntley, why you're there. Mike and Amanda and Lori, it turns out that I have had to move my COM 416 class to this time period.
Okay.
I apologize to you. Is it possible for you guys to meet me at 5 p.m., which is in just 1 hour?
I have parent conferences at 5:30.
Okay.
So I can meet for a little while.
Yeah, I should be able to jump in a little bit at 5 as well.
Beautiful. So let's just resume at 5 o'clock. All right. I'll see you in about an hour. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. There we go. I forgot about, I double scheduled. Once we changed this class, I completely forgot about it. Okay. So, Wendy, I see you. Candace, I see you. Here I am in Sarajevo, which is the capital city of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And if you imagine on the map, Italy, you know how Italy's hanging down in the middle of the Mediterranean, and you go east of Italy and south, that's where I am in Sarajevo. In the early 1990s, there was a terrible war here in the former Yugoslavia, and thousands and thousands of people were killed. The former country of Yugoslavia was split up into 7 different countries. And the country I'm in now, Bosnia-Herzegovina, has the capital city of Sarajevo. It's a beautiful medieval city on the banks of a river. And I am here talking about propaganda to people of Central Europe. So I'm learning a lot. And I'll be sharing some of what I'm learning with you later on this semester. Okay, so Mike.
Here I am.
How are you? So I'm glad to see you, but I didn't realize that when I changed my my URI class to 4 p.m., it would disrupt our meeting. So I'm hoping we can reschedule our meeting for 5 o'clock, which is in just about 1 hour. Does that work for your schedule?
Absolutely. So I'll be joining at 5 o'clock.
Okay, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, there we go. All right, so here I am in Sarajevo. I've been having a great time learning about propaganda, and I think you've been having quite a time reflecting on propaganda in your life. So most of you are nearly finished or almost finished. You know you have until midnight to finish your LEAP 1. But I'd love to hear a little bit from you about highlights and lowlights of this first major assignment for the class. What did you like about writing the LEAP 1 essay, and what was frustrating or difficult about it? Justine.
Well, one thing I was kind of confused about, I wasn't sure if I had to use from the worksheet you gave us, if I defined propaganda from advertising, entertainment, and like so on, like one from each of those, or just do 6 propaganda examples in general?
Great. So that was a question you had. Do you have to handle all those different kinds of propaganda or just a few, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a good question. Other experiences. What did you like about doing your Leap 1 propaganda in my life, and what did you dislike about it? What were the struggles that you faced as you completed that assignment? And what did you discover or learn or enjoy about it?
Going off of what Justine said, I kind of liked the challenge of finding examples in all 6 of those categories. It was definitely, it took me a little bit longer, but I chose to find examples in each of those.
So it was a challenge to find examples across all 6 of those areas. We're not used to thinking about education as propaganda, right? And that might have been a challenge. And we're not used to thinking of entertainment as propaganda. So that might have been a challenge as well. Hey, Mary Moen, how are you?
Sorry.
No problem. Here I am. I didn't realize when I changed my COM 416 class that it would interfere with our meeting. We've moved the meeting to 5 p.m. Are you going to be able to join us at 5 p.m.?
Today instead?
Yes, because here you can see my students and we
Oh.
moved my class.
Sorry. I'll get out.
I moved
Yeah.
my class time. Can I see you? Can we meet at 5 o'clock instead?
Is everyone else, they're okay with that? Yeah, I'll try to do that. Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye. Okay, there we go. And Brian, you got that message too, right? We're going to try to meet in 1 hour, all right?
Yep, sounds good.
You're a sweetheart. Thanks.
See you then.
Those 6 people that you just met are the founding members of an organization called Media Literacy Now, Rhode Island. You may or may not be aware that recently our state General Assembly passed a law stating that the Rhode Island Department of Education needed to consider the inclusion of media literacy into the elementary and secondary curriculum here in our little state. So all those people are gathering to have a planning meeting. And when I rescheduled this class to 4 p.m., I completely forgot about them. So that happens sometimes. All right, so here's the thing. And Saeed, I'm hoping you can help me with this. It seems like my hotel has blocked all the WordPress sites for some reason. So I can't get on to propaganda2017.com. Can you get onto that site, Saeed, and share your screen with us?
Yes.
I'm very, very happy to see that most of you have created blogs. Most of you have created your Leap 1 website and completed most or all of the activities that I invited you to take a look at. I've just been reviewing some of those materials. I was really pleased. I was really pleased to see how you handled the Kendall Jennings. Oh, here he goes.
Yeah.
You are beautiful. And Saeed, can you click on the class roster? So some of you will notice that I have linked, if you sent me a tweet with your link to your website, I've linked your website here, right? So if you click on the red hyperlinks, you're going to be able to take a look at the Leap 1 essays by everyone. If you don't see a hyperlink next to your name, then you should immediately send me an email with that link so I can link it up to your work. And if you want to make sure that I'm reading your work and grading it, you should click on this link to make sure that it works, right? So that would be a great thing to do. Now, sadly, Saeed, if you take us back to the main page, you're going to see that because I couldn't access my WordPress for some crazy reason due to this hotel's Wi-Fi. The website seems to be working fine, but not in this hotel. So I haven't been able to upload the newest block, which has the feature of, so trust me, I'm lying. So what I'm going to do is talk through some of the ideas of Trust Me, I'm Lying, and then introduce you to what we're going to be working on for next week. So, Saeed, thank you so much for that. You can unshare your screen now.
Okay.
Thank you. So I was really pleased to see how you handled the comments that you made in here on the Pathright. And I'm just going to make a couple of notes from some of the ideas that you explored here that I thought were really most important, right? So the chapters in the first half of the book are really Ryan Holiday pulling back the curtain on all of his tricks, right? He's making an argument here, but sometimes we can get distracted by his tricks and his stories because he's sharing ideas mostly through storytelling. I want to make sure that you understand the big ideas that underlie those stories. The first big idea is that he makes an argument that immediacy is killing quality journalism, and that journalists are so eager to go after something new that they don't really care if it's quality or not. In chapter 1, he says, my job is to manufacture controversy because, as one of you said, who was this, who made the great comment in the Flipgrid, right? That was, all propaganda is, all news is good, all publicity is good, right? In some ways, that idea is an argument that Ryan Holiday is talking a lot about. Especially, he uses the term faux provocation, right? It's kind of intentional stirring up of controversy in order to get clicks. He introduces us to the idea that the page view is the economic currency. More page views equals more money. Pretend exclusives, like the TMZ scoop, is basically this idea of build a blog that's designed to be sold to someone for a lot of money. And that page view-based compensation creates reward systems for journalists that work against their telling the truth. He talks about all the free stuff that journalists can get and all the ways in which journalists can disguise their identity and who's supporting their work financially. He talked about how easy it was to to create an illusion of verifiability by using fake emails. And he talked about how he could use Wikipedia to make something seem like it was a fact. He talked about how self-interest motivates sources. And I especially thought this connected very nicely to Alex, to your observation in the Flipgrid about the way in which the relationship between a journalist and his or her sources is built on trust, but that it's not always appropriate that trust is sometimes misplaced. In chapter 6, he talks about spreading is more important than quality, and he uses that great example of the Detroit images of the Detroit ruin as a form of pornography, and saying, you know, the pictures of Detroit with people in it didn't spread, but the pictures of the empty ruined buildings, right, with the feral cats and dogs spread fast, because as who talks about this in the Flipgrid, anger spreads the fastest, right? Anger, outrage, strong positive or strong negative emotions are more viral. And that's a topic we're going to explore in more detail next week. But I want to make sure that you understand that concept of valence. If you want to get a job as a communications professional, throw in concepts like positive valence and negative valence, and the employer is going to eat that right up. But recognize you're going to learn what that concept of valence means in chapter 6. So the idea of monetizing those emotions is something that Ryan Holiday shows us how to do. In chapter 7, the idea of tricking people or deliberately misinforming allowed many of you in that flip grid to make the connection between Ryan Holiday's techniques and the concept of disinformation, the deliberate spreading of untrue information. And in chapter 7, he also talks about how provoking people to comment creates page view opportunities, because if you're so angry after reading a blog that you want to comment, turns out you have to click on that page like 10 times in order to comment, which jacks up the page view, which is just exactly what they want. And he historicizes that in light of yellow journalism from the 1890s and the economics of the yellow journalism. And he describes how the death of the subscription, the model of buying a monthly subscription and getting the newspaper or the magazine delivered at your door, the death of the subscription model of the economics of information has really shifted to attention economics, right? And so in chapter 9, he says it's all about the headline. In chapter 10, he says it's all about becoming popular, right? Confirming the obvious, surprising people, and counting very carefully with the page view and other data and analytic metrics, creating an illusion of popularity. And this is the chapter where he describes Warnock's dilemma. I was so pleased to see several of you in the flip grid describe your understanding of that concept. Also, some of you in the Pathfinder or the Pathwrite, this idea of sort of people don't comment on something that that's correct, that's nonsense, that's confusing, or that they don't care about. So perfectly good information doesn't get commented on if it's any of those things. Warnock's dilemma is we never know. We never know why people don't comment, but we know that outrage, anger, strong emotions do promote conversation. In chapter 11, the idea that the very format of blogs is structured in a way that promotes propaganda is a really interesting idea. The blog structure now we take for granted with the most recent stuff at the top, but Ryan Holiday says to us that was just an accident of the way blogs developed historically. The fact that blogs are short is also, and the way they use subheads and links, which is why I want to have you go back to your Leap 1s before midnight tonight to make sure that you are using subheads and links, right? So take a look at how reference to subheads and links is explicitly part of the criteria for evaluation for Leap 1. I did take a look at some of your leaps, and most of you did include subheads and links, but just remember that's kind of important. And in chapter 12, as he kind of describes the importance of public relations and media people finding the angle on a story, he talks about how crazy people can easily distort facts, and how he says at the end of our reading, all of the American Apparel controversies were made up. Which is why some of you know that I was quite intrigued by that idea. He said all the American Apparel controversies were made up. And so I did observe that American Apparel is back in the news again. Give me a thumbs up if you happen to come across some news about American Apparel in the last couple of days. Did you see it? Yeah, absolutely fascinating. In this Guardian article, it's just released a couple days ago, I think. American Apparel founder Dov Charney, sleeping with people you work with is unavoidable. Now, there's a headline for you, right? And it's in the Guardian. And there he is. And it's about his new company. And there's a really great Vox segment, or no, Vice News. There's a really good Vice News segment on this topic that takes you back into his company and reintroduces you to this guy. And he is a crazy character. And as I read this, I started wondering, I guess probably something I hope you were wondering too. How do I verify whether Ryan Holiday is telling the truth? Give me a thumbs up if you found yourself wondering. Is Ryan Holiday, did you find yourself wondering if he was telling us the truth? So how would we go about verifying whether or not he was telling the truth? What are your thoughts about that? I'm not going to ask you to do this, but if you were going to try to verify whether he was telling the truth or not about any of that shit he talked about, what would you do? How would you go about it?
I mean, it'd be really hard to go ahead and try and get in contact with any of his like coworkers or something, because I'm sure they wouldn't want to come out and admit that they've been doing the same thing. So I'm not really sure how you'd go about proving this, other than asking him to provide like a paper trail or something that, you know, this is exactly what I published at this point or something of that sort.
Yeah, but you're right about how asking his coworkers probably wouldn't work, because these are not the kinds of techniques that people are going to be proud to reveal. So how else could we go about figuring out if he's telling the truth? We can't ask his coworkers.
I mean, you could just assume he's telling the truth, because no one's just going to like throw themselves under the bus like that.
So Rachel, that's a really good point. It's really asking that question, what's the author's motive, right? Why would he write a book where he reveals what a scumbag he was? Especially when in the second half of the book, he virtually apologizes for every single thing he did. As we're going to read this week, in this week's reading of the second half of the book, he gains awareness of the impact and unintended consequences of his work and has stuff to say about it. So I've been thinking a lot about how to verify Ryan Holiday. And one of the things I was really surprised at is one of our class members had an interaction with him on Twitter. Did you happen to notice that? Holy moly. So guess what? What that means is Ryan Holiday is reading our Twitter feed, ComFord16. I know, it's thrilling, or, well, I don't know, creepy. It's creepy or thrilling, right? But I believe that it is Kristen Beatty who got the ping back, right? And if you go to her website, you can kind of see that, right? He comments on one of her comments, and I can't remember where I saw it here, but I was really intrigued at that. And if you want to, you can follow Ryan Holiday on his Twitter, and he'll be noticing what you're writing as well, right? Okay, so let me just do a little bit more commenting on your Flipgrid responses, because I do feel like you guys are coming along very nicely on your Flipgrid responses. The way I listen and respond to these is to try to summarize some of the key ideas that you claim, and then identify what I think are the most interesting responses, right? So this week's most interesting responses, basically Rachel Steele for the observation that, you know, any bad publicity is still publicity, negative attention is better than no attention, and this idea that anger spreads. And that links to Aaron's great comment about, it's pronounced agitprop. Agit means agitation, propaganda, agitation, propaganda, agitprop. And agitprop gets you so mad that you have to do something. And so I was really happy for Aaron that you made that connection. Jenna Z and Justine, so pleased at your work in the Flipgrid this week. You were the only two students, to my knowledge, who explicitly referenced another student's comments while making your own comment. And as we're trying to create a seminar-like learning experience, that's really important. I can see from the page views that most of you are looking and watching each other's stuff. Now the trick is, can you make a connection between somebody else's ideas and your own idea? Because that is a really sophisticated rhetorical strategy, and it helps us create new ideas. So try that for next week. And Alex, awesome comment on really examining this complex relationship between the journalist and his or her source. Understanding that reporter-source relationship is part of understanding the complicated, messy world that journalists are in today. So I did the same thing as I was reading through your comments on the Kendall Jenner piece, and really pleased overall about the great work that you did in this class, right? So I wanted to see if you had any questions about the work that you just did before I introduce you to what's coming next. No questions, that's awesome. So Saeed, can I ask you a big favor? Can you share your screen for propaganda2017.com and take us to Leap 2? So this week, I'd like to introduce you to the things you're going to be doing, and I'd like to start with reviewing Leap 2, right? So maybe you can click on the link yourself, or Saeed, maybe you can share that link with us.
Okay, Rene, maybe you can stop to share your screen. Okay.
Leap 2 is a really cool project, but it's a really big project. And so if you think that you can start working on Leap 2 on Monday night and turn it in on Tuesday, yeah, that's not going to work for you. Saeed, can you click on the assignments button? Yep. I think I made Leap 2 active, and I'm not sure because I couldn't test it out myself, but go down there and see. No, see? Okay. In a day, Leap 2 will be highlighted and active. It's due on October 17th. So you have a while, almost a month, 4 weeks to do it. That link will become active before next Tuesday, and what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to read that assignment carefully so you know how to complete it. Saeed, you can stop your share screen now, and I'll start my share screen. I want to introduce you to the two major activities for next week. Next week, the topic is propaganda and social media. And we're going to try to understand how social media is a powerful tool for propaganda because of its ability to support illusions of all kinds. But we're also going to understand how there are unanticipated consequences to the use of propaganda that cannot be controlled. We're going to start by watching a really interesting film called Look Who's Back. It's available on Netflix, and it's subtitled. It's a German film. I thought we should watch the trailer so you get a feeling for the absurd basis for the story, which is what would happen if Hitler came back? What would happen if Hitler came back to modern day Germany? Let's watch the trailer.
Unter welchem Namen soll ich denn Ihre E-Mail eintragen?
Na, unter meinem natürlich, Adolf Hitler.
Sorry, wenn ich jetzt nochmal nachfrage, aber...
Nein, ich heiße natürlich nicht wirklich so. In Wirklichkeit heiße ich Schmuel Rosenzweig.
Ja, das ist doch super. Schmuel ist doch doof. Schmuel schreibe ich mit H?
Das war ein Scherz.
Adolf Hitler ist weg.
Was weg? Jemand hat meinen Namen da.
Mhm. Und wenn Sie einfach einen anderen Namen nehmen?
Sie meinen wie ein Pseudonym?
Na quasi.
Nehmen Sie die neue Reichskanzlei. Die habe ich immer gemocht. Sagen Sie, wer kontrolliert das Ganze eigentlich? Es gibt doch jetzt kein Reichspropagandaministerium mehr.
Nee, das läuft jetzt auch alle ziemlich ungeregelt im Netz, mein Führer.
Ja? Das ist gut zu wissen.
Wie möchten Sie heute Abend von mir angesprochen werden?
Herr Hitler würde mir genügen. Sie können auch meinen Führer sagen, aber nur wenn Sie wollen. Deutschland liebe dich! Gehen Sie aus dem Weg!
Darf man das?
Man darf nicht nur, man muss. Ist das schön?
Ich nehme ihn mal wieder ab, ja? Machen Sie richtig super, Herr Hitler. Also dafür, dass Sie das erste Mal machen. Geben Sie mal was ein, irgendwas, was Sie interessiert. Weltherrschaft und Suchen.
Eine wunderbare Technologie. Das Internet. Ich bin hier der Führer, ja? Und zwar seit 9 Monaten bin ich hier der Führer. Und ein anständiger Regisseur hätte das in 1,5 Monaten in diesen Kasten reinbekommen. Nicht bist du, gar nichts. Ein ganz schlechter Regisseur. Es ist mein Film und nicht dein Film. Es ist meiner. Was tust du denn hier? Du bist doch selbst wichtig. Mein Name ist Adolf. Ich grüße Sie. Ich möchte meine Uniform reinigen lassen.
Welche Uhr kommt? Sie sind?
Was?
Welche Uhr kommt? Morgen.
Wieso kommt eine Uhr?
Oh, 10 Uhr, 11 Uhr.
Morgen, ganz früh. Wann machen Sie auf?
9.
9 Uhr.
Oh, 9, so früh.
Ja.
Bis zum später kommt. Deutschland, ich liebe dich!
Ein bisschen mehr Demokratie wäre angebracht, ja. So, dass halt man ein klares Machtwort spricht, so wird sie machen. Punkt aus, fertig, keine Diskussion.
Da haben Sie vollkommen recht und das ist genau meine Art von Demokratie.
All right. You have just seen all of the trailers, right? Stacked one on top of the other, right? All of the trailers for the film. It is a comedy, and it's a shocking comedy. as it uses a mix of actors and real documentary footage. So after you view the film, which is available on Netflix, I'd like you to post a comment by choosing 2 of the questions below to explore. First, some scenes are quite memorable and carry some big ideas about celebrity culture, Nazism, and anti-Semitism, media economics, and propaganda. Describe one scene that was especially meaningful to you. Or question 2, comment on 2 characters in the film that you found interesting. What big ideas is the filmmaker exploring by creating these characters? Number 3, this film is a comedy. What aspects of the film are realistic and what's unrealistic about this film? And number 4, what do you think the filmmaker's message is to contemporary audiences? Why did he make this film? So I think you're going to enjoy this week's film, and I think you're going to enjoy this week's readings. So after you watch the film, I'd like you to read the Slate review of the film. And if you would, please follow back at least 2 of the hyperlinks. This review looks at how, in particular, how German audiences reacted to this film. And that's a really that opens up some really interesting ideas. Of course, we're going to be viewing it as American students of propaganda, right? And our perspective on the film is really because we're studying propaganda. But this review gives you ideas of how Germans understood this film, and I think that will be really helpful to your critical reading, critical analysis of this film. Now we're actively steaming to our conclusion of Trust Me, I'm Lying. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. After reading part 2 of Ryan Holiday's book, compose a 90-second Flipgrid to summarize and comment upon the key ideas introduced in the chapters you've been assigned. So chapters 13 to 15, Alex, Jenna, Aaron, Adriana, Wendy, and Hasher, I'd like you to focus on ideas that emerged in those 3 chapters. Colton, Alex, Izzy, Leighton, Addison, and Jennifer, if you can focus on the chapters, the key ideas in chapters 16 through 18. Bethany, Connor, Dominic, Michael, and Abby focus on chapters 19 through 21. And Antonia, Kristen, Kelly, Justine, and Rachel, chapters 22, 23, and 24. You'll see you'll use the Flipgrid to make your response here, but I do want to call your attention to this. Please make sure in your brief, dense 90-second comment that you both summarize and comment on a couple of key ideas in those chapters, right? If you just summarize without sharing your own opinion, that's going to be a problem. If you only give me your opinion and you don't summarize, that's going to be a problem, right? So make sure you do both the summarizing and the analysis to demonstrate your understanding of this incredible book. Okay, so that's the work that you have ahead of you for next week. What comments or questions do you have?
I have a question.
Yeah.
My name isn't on what you just read off, so should I just pick one or?
Oh, Candace, how did I leave you off?
My name also isn't on one.
Candace, and who else?
Eric.
Eric Cohen?
Yep.
Oh yeah, so, okay, I'll fix that right away. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, I'll assign you and look for that in a few minutes. After class, I'll put the fresh details up there.
Thank you.
Okay, so what's coming up for next week is a topic where you have considerable expertise because you're already well aware of how the living in a world where you're what you share and what you receive is shaped by your social network, you're already well aware of how propaganda comes to you from people that you trust, respect, and admire, and how you share propaganda with the people who trust, respect, and admire you, right? And what Ryan Holiday is going to try to get at in the second half of the book is really the unintended consequences of the rise of this new attention economy, where it doesn't matter how you get someone's attention as long as you get someone's attention. The unintended social consequences of that are going to be something that we get to dig into next week by reading this book. And even though he's going to be focusing on mostly, as we looked at this week, marketing and publicity issues, there are real implications for the political discourse. And as a way to illustrate that, I was thinking a lot about how to provide a kind of awful counterpoint to that Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad. Many of you rightly noticed that Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad was a real distortion of the Black Lives Matter movement, of the general protests that we're seeing around the country about police brutality. And most of you frustrated and upset about how it depicted the protesters, the police, and the way in which, you know, the celebrity, stripped of her fake wig and fancy dress, could, you know, make peace between us, right? For the last week or so, in thinking about how that ad depicts protesters, I was stunned to come across this disturbing piece of propaganda. Also a form of marketing and a form of political propaganda, but so disturbing and troubling that it deserves some critical inquiry. So let's take a look at it now. This is an NRA ad. It comes from the National Rifle Association. Let's take a look.
They use their media to assassinate real news. They use their schools to teach children that their president is another Hitler. They use their movie stars and singers and comedy shows and award shows to repeat their narrative over and over again. And then they use their ex-president to endorse the resistance, all to make them march, make them protest, make them scream racism and sexism and xenophobia and homophobia, to smash windows, burn cars, shut down interstates and airports, bully and terrorize the law-abiding, until the only option left is for the police to do their jobs and stop the madness. And when that happens, they'll use it as an excuse for their outrage. The only way we stop this, the only way we save our country and our freedom, is to fight this violence of lies with the clenched fist of truth. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
Whoa. Okay, so let's take a look at the background information. This was provided by whoever uploaded this site, this example of propaganda, to my Mind Over Media website. This ad uses us, them thinking to emphasize that protesters are harming America by conducting illegal protest. I found this on my Facebook news page. It's an example of attacking opponents, right? You remember, of course, that in the Mind Over Media website, we identify 4 techniques that make it really easy to spot propaganda. Propaganda activates strong emotions. It simplifies information and ideas. It responds to audience needs and values, and it attacks opponents. The person who uploaded it said, by claiming that liberal protesters are responsible for America's problems, this ad is very dangerous, as it suggests that violence is warranted against them. that's why this person uploaded it. And I guess it's really up to us as interpreters. Do we think this is beneficial or harmful propaganda? So I think it's a little bit harmful. And of course, it looks like lots of people so far at the Media Education Lab's Mind Over Media website agree with me. I go down to the bottom of the page and see, there's just one comment, right? It was made by Kristen Beatty. Remember that I asked you all to comment on an example of propaganda, and I'm pleased to see, Kristen, that you did. Kristen writes, this ad takes advantage of the fears and anxieties that are so prevalent within our society today. The ad portrays liberals as being extremely violent and seems to suggest that the only way to fight back and stay safe is to arm yourself and join the NRA. If taken literally, this ad certainly incites violence. So, Kristen, thank you so much for making this great comment on the NRA ad. I do invite you to take a look at examples of propaganda that might be beneficial or harmful. In this case, this is political propaganda and marketing propaganda, right? Encouraging people to join the NRA if they believe the enemy is those liberals who are inciting people to protest. From my point of view, that completely distorts the actuality of the protests that we're seeing today. It completely distorts and manipulates the true motives of people who come out on the street. I was one of those protesters who came out in January to Providence, to the State House, for the Women's March. And it was a really empowering experience to recognize that my right to assembly, the right to gather in a group to protest the actions of my government, is a fully enacting my rights as a citizen. And so for an organization to turn one's fundamental citizenship rights into being duped, being manipulated, or being an appropriate target of violence just seems crazy irresponsible. And so I've been thinking a lot about how, Ryan Holiday says there are going to be rewards to being irresponsible, right? There are going to be financial, monetary rewards for being irresponsible as a communicator, right? And this really creepy YouTube ad seems to be an example of something that's really willing to use disinformation and distort information in order to get attention. And the irony of it, and I mean, boy, isn't it an irony, is that by clicking on it and showing it to you, I helped them, didn't I? At an economic level, I helped them by giving it attention. And so I've been thinking a lot about how what I share, what I choose to share and not share, directly feeds into the reward system. And that's a big problem for me, teaching a course on propaganda. How much awful propaganda do I want to show you if I know that it's actually going to help those companies who are exploiting people's fears and anxieties? So one of the many paradoxes of teaching this class is some of those ethical quandaries. And I might show you some other really awful propaganda this semester, but know that I'm darn well wrestling with the paradox that by my choosing to spread it, I am helping them financially. And I feel like in some ways that's kind of what Ryan Holiday wants us to reflect more about. And so I hope you're thinking about that this week as you decide what to share and what not to share. Okay, it's not even 5 o'clock, but we're kind of finished the course. You have some cool things to look at and to read for next week. And I will look forward to seeing you live on the Zoom, or if you're watching this as a recording now, you're going to go below the YouTube comment stream and see my instructions, and you're going to place your class participation activity there in the comment thread. Okay, so we're signing off. Let's see, we used the Pulp Fiction sign last time. Oh, let's do this. Let's do the growing goodbye. Okay, so if you can make your fingers kind of wiggle from the bottom to the top, this is how we're going to say goodbye. Goodbye, 416. Bravo, you guys. You rock. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.